so there's 100 jobs and there's 125 people that want them. How does inviting more people to take from the available job pool create more jobs? I'm ready.
All else equal, it wouldn't, but the available job pool can grow, especially in cases, especially in cases where there are, with H-1B visas, what we call clustering effects. The reason all these big companies are stationing themselves in San Francisco, stationing themselves in Silicon Valley, is because there's a lot of talent there. What is a, I don't even know that much econometrics, man. What is a, do you know what a p-value is?
So why are we doing pop quiz on economic terms? And then they'll do some p-hacking. And so that's how you...
Wait, hold on. Just what is p-hacking?
It's when you run the study multiple times and you grab the results that you like the most.
What result? What's the result that you're aiming at?
Look, here's the thing.
Do you think the p-hacking could have anything to do with the p-value? Liking and subscribing helps me continue to produce content, and it's greatly appreciated. You can also make sure to catch these debates live, either here on YouTube, or in the description there are links to my Twitch, my Kick, and my Twitter.
And I normally don't like to call people degenerates, but he's unfucking America. That sounds exciting. Unfucking America, except his version of unfuck America is go against Trump and try to change the midterms. So we're going to argue about Trump, I guess. There can't be a single day that goes by where we do not talk about Daddy Trump. So, not fun. For those of you that don't know you, for all of my 7 current followers, quick rundown. Similar to Destiny, you're part of that shtick. You even got some of his mannerisms down. I'm just going off of Admiral Gibbs's panel where you were doing some things, and then average debate. I think it was Tyler and I were having fun mimicking you as well. But yes, for those that know me and don't know you, who are you? What are you about?
Yeah, I'm Nonfon. Stream on Twitch and Kick and Twitter at Nonfon420, and on YouTube at Nonfon, where you can also find a bunch of my old debates. I'm a liberal, center-left streamer. I think I talk mostly about economics. And to be clear, I'm not affiliated with the Unfuck America tour. I just like showing up to the events that are near me. But, you know, I do like Democrats, generally.
Well, excellent. Well, so I guess we'll start with H-1B.
Sure.
H-1B was a program that was designed to make it so that if America didn't have enough talent or didn't have the specialized talent, that we'd be able to bring some folks in. Fast forward to now, a lot of, especially government contractors, what they will do is they will run ads for positions in papers that they know don't get any circulation to check the box saying they're looking for the job, looking for talent, can't find it domestically. So then a bunch of entry-level and even mid-level engineering talent gets imported. It doesn't let any of the domestic talent get in on that action, and it's being grossly abused. Daddy Trump, the left is upset about that because they say, how dare we charge $100,000 fee? Well, the fact of the matter is if there was really a need for it, it was so special that $100,000 would be perfectly fine. And given that we have computer science degree graduates in America graduating with degrees and not finding jobs, it seems strange to me that we're importing technical labor. Nonfon, you disagree in some fashion.
Yeah, no one is arguing that like H-1B visas are like so like, or no one thinks they're so special that like $100,000 fee, you know, is what is the requirement for, or should be the requirement for like getting in, right? Like there may be other visas
what do you think
that are
H-1B program for. Like, what do you think?
I think it's for relatively skilled workers to come to the U.S., and that happens to be primarily tech workers that come to immigrate here. That's also not, to be clear, like when I'm evaluating a program or whatever, I think primarily just about like whether it is a net benefit or not. I think the evidence suggests that H-1B visas are in fact a net benefit. And I'll say again, like we have like O1 visas or whatever for like the super high skill, like genius people who maybe for them, if you didn't want them coming here for whatever reason, you wanted to add an extra barrier, you could do $100,000 fee, and it might not be a big deal for them, but you know, especially because a lot of H1
right here.
True, but just like
no, if I may, just because there's a part of this, you sound so the H-1B is exclusively for America doesn't have enough talent, so I'll give you $100K if we don't have enough, paying a surcharge for it. Maybe. But
hold on, that's not what does that mean?
Jobs away from Americans.
I don't think there's good evidence for that. So for one, I don't know what it means to say. I don't know what it means. What I take by good evidence is either like papers that exploit the lottery system that the H-1B system has, that I look primarily, if I'm not like fully reading a paper and I'm just like looking at the abstract or whatever, I'm looking for something that like is either done by an economist I trust or published in a journal that has good like peer review and stuff.
Do you care about job numbers? Do you care about, for example, the stats of computer science grads in the U.S. looking for jobs? Meanwhile,
but that's not. But you understand. But you understand. Any number of things could be affecting that, and any number of things could be affecting that. And we've had H-1B visas for a long time. We haven't always seen the same like sort of issues that college graduates are having right now with getting a job in computer science or whatever. I think plausibly a lot of that is simply related to the fact that a lot of companies hired a lot of people during COVID. And I think this even generalizes to some extent to the entire labor market. Companies kind of overhired people during COVID, especially tech companies who saw a big increase in demand, and they have like slowly been laying people off. And now we're at the point where it's a very, low hire, low fire economy generally, but also especially for the tech industry.
We'll stop for a second. You're aware that it is very rampant in government contracting to use the H-1B program, and they will advertise jobs in low traffic websites and low traffic job boards intentionally to check the box to say that they tried to find someone with the skill set and couldn't.
Yeah, I don't consider that.
True, so that's offensive, correct? The federal government.
No. So for one, that's not responsive to anything I just said. That's number one. Like, that does not respond at all to my critique about, and I only mentioned one critique that I don't think there's good evidence to suggest that they decrease net jobs. I didn't even mention the other spillover benefits and stuff.
You only look at papers and economists. How the fuck can that, like, there's other evidence.
I agree. There's other evidence that matters. I agree. I'm just saying, if I'm weighing, you gave me the fact that like tech companies, or like we see like recent college graduates like have a higher unemployment rate now as opposed to a few years ago. Any number of things could be affecting that. Is that not what you cited?
But that's not the argument that I was making.
Okay, well, because what I
argument is, if we take a look at the H-1B visa holders and the amount of computer engineers we brought in under those, and we look at the amount of available talent in the U.S., the amount of H-1B visa holders taking up talent should never, ever, as the program was released, take any jobs from Americans. So we have literally tens of thousands of H-1B visa software engineers, and we have tons of software engineers that are looking for work. Can you agree that if the H-1B program is funding folks coming from other countries to do work that Americans funding them do, okay, that's making an immigration policy that's allowing them to come in and compete against U.S. labor. Like, they're never. Here's the core axis of it, the real hinge on it. H-1B visas are never supposed to compete against U.S. labor. If there's
what do you mean supposed to?
That's the whole fucking point. The whole.
I understand. So when my understanding is the reason they have these requirements, which I don't like. To be clear, that like companies advertise, have to advertise the position before they like are able to hire H-1B worker, is because there were policymakers at the time who wanted to make it. I bet it was somewhat of either a compromise to have that, or they just wanted to make it like more politically popular to do so. But I just care about analyzing whether or not something is a net benefit. And I think you're probably confused. I think we're doing a bit of lump of labor here. There are a lot of reasons why H-1B.
That through my arguments, and so you go off on these tangents, and then there's a bunch of things.
There's not a tangent. What I'm about to say is that I think that there's not good evidence that H-1B visa holders decrease net jobs in the tech industry, because there's lots of other effects that they have.
I'm not saying it decreases net jobs. What I'm saying is that U.S. labor gets displaced to foreign labor because we let the H-1B folks come in, and it was explicitly, when it was released, it was meant to be temporary. And so, okay, this is the formal character.
Hold on, well, let me specify: net jobs for native-born citizens, for native-born tech workers.
Okay, appreciate the clarification. It is a different argument, and I don't ever want to misattribute an argument.
I mean, I think it also increases net jobs, but
it says right here a temporary. No, because here's where it has a compounding problem. We bring in a bunch of engineers from other countries. Great, fine. There's lots of good Indian engineers, for example. A lot of bad ones too, but a lot of good ones. Problem is, they come in, they learn these skills, they're getting more and more advanced, and the folks in the US competing to get in that job market become increasingly behind because they can't get the opportunity. So reconcile this one with me. I want to understand your thinking. This isn't about who's right or who's wrong. I just literally, what does Nonfon think? So you could think, for example, letting all of these engineers from all over the world come have their slice of the American dream is great. The more people we bring in, the more opportunity we have. Wonderful. Now, that's scenario A. Scenario B is by letting all of these H-1B engineers come in, it has gutted the future of American engineering and taken food like jobs off the table for domestic talent. And so it's gimping America's own ability to innovate from within, and it's screwing entire generations of engineers. That's scenario B. So do you think it's scenario A? Do you think scenario B is just a figment of, I'm going to use your
no, I think the best evidence I've seen suggests that these types of immigrants tend to be complements to other U.S. labor rather than substitutes for other U.S. labor.
How do you inspect your worldview?
How do I expect my worldview? What?
Inspect it, review it. So for any number of reasons we might think we're wrong from time to time. For example,
I look at the evidence and I talk to people who think I'm wrong, and I ask people who I think are smart what their opinions are and the such. Like that is.
So if I could demonstrate to you that, for example, the H-1B program in government contracting has led to importing engineers to do useless work that is largely just pumping up numbers so government contractors can get a cut on the payroll at the expense of American opportunity, would you reconsider your position?
About what? It would depend on how prevalent that problem is. So I'm sure there is above one case of a contractor doing that. That doesn't, in my view,
of it would make you change. 1%, 10%, 50%, 100%.
I'm not sure. It would have to be. I don't think it would have to be above 50%, but it'd have to be like quite prevalent. I think, because I think the evidence suggests H-1B visas contribute a pretty non-negligible amount to like total like U.S. Productivity growth.
How do you arrive at that affirmative claim? You're making a claim without a foundation. That's fine. Go for it.
No. Because so there was a for that I could pull it up. I recall reading a blog post by
reference to a blog post.
I recall reading a blog post by economist Tyler Cohen, who was citing a study that made that claim. And I can see conceptually why that claim would. I can see why that claim would be true, like because H-1B visa holders work in a lot of like software industry that like other businesses use and the such, and I can see how that would have a positive impact on productivity.
Do you think that policymakers have an incentive to astroturf the internet with studies and experts that agree with the policy, so that way they can go ahead and do what they want to do anyway?
No, I don't think that's prevalent.
Oh, okay.
What's the evidence that it is at all prevalent?
Well, so one of the problems I'm going to have making any progress with you is based off of, like, at least in this moment, maybe down the road. In this moment, you have a set of authorities that you look to. I tend to look at things from a first principles perspective. Meaning, I go look out the front door, I see what I'm looking at, we start from there. So, for example...
Okay, I think that's a horrible way to look at to review evidence and inspect your worldview. Because you could miss any number of things.
Well, that's just the starting point. Certainly when you're gathering this, but like, for example, if we have domestic talent that's going to college and getting computer science degrees, for example, and they want to go find a job, and they can't find a job, and like... do you think that part, do you find objectionable? Do you dispute that there are computer science grads looking for work?
No.
Okay. Do you think that that's like a pretty common thing right now, or it's sort of just like there's a few guys out there that don't have this?
I think it's more common than it was a few years ago. My understanding is that, like, if you look at the unemployment rate for them, it is not like super high compared to historical norms, but it is higher than it normally is.
Right. So, yeah.
But how am I supposed to tell if that's from H-1B visas or not? Maybe H-1B visas are making it better. Maybe there's less people looking for a job because of H-1B visas.
So there's 100 jobs and there's 125 people that want them.
Mm-hmm.
How does inviting more people to take from the available job pool create more jobs? I'm ready.
All else equal, wouldn't, but the available job pool can grow, especially in cases, especially in cases where there are with H-1B visas what we call clustering effects. The reason all these big companies are stationing themselves in San Francisco, stationing themselves in Silicon Valley, is because there's a lot of talent there, right? I'm sure you know all the issues with California and how woke they are and how much they tax, but nonetheless, that's where the talent is, so that's where people invest. If you bring more talent into these areas, you can bring more investment into these areas, and they can increase native-born employment, as well as, you know, H-1B visas can increase native-born employment as well. And we have some like empirical evidence from that. You can also you can just think of like
evidence. Where is the empirical evidence? If
I cite you studies, are you going to care about them?
At them? No, they're absolutely worth looking at. They're not dispositive. For example,
I agree that no individual study is going to be dispositive.
Well, so are you aware of the? Let's zoom out for a second. Are you aware of the repeatability crisis in academia?
Yes.
Okay, so if our corpus of studies can't consistently be repeated, which frequently means p-hacking. You know what p-hacking is, right?
That's like probably the least common in economics.
I
think if you look at, if you look at like p-values by subject, I think economics is like the best.
You run the study 10 times, you find the outlier that you like the most, you publish that. That's like the most quasi-honest. That's like not even faking data. It's just cherry-picking data. And so when you're saying, I like to look at studies, a part of the problem that I have is right now there hasn't been a lot of integrity in the institutions pushing these out. So some of them are better than others.
No, that's true. So for number one, like my understanding, if you just look at like p-value by like social science, like economics is like it does really well. Like economics papers tend to be, you know, pretty at least the ones that get published, you know, pretty well specified. They tend to rely on, you know, pretty good data.
Authority deference, right? You're appealing to authority on all of these, and it's fine.
No. So I'm not necessarily for all of them appealing to authority. Now I think,
is a study not an authoritative document? Like, are you saying that like you're not treating these studies as authorities?
So I'm not treating the studies in and of themselves as an authority. I'm treating the study and the data within it as evidence for whatever like the study is claiming. Okay, or whatever I am claiming.
Where's this study? I'm so excited about this empirical evidence. You made a claim, you claim there's empirical evidence for it. Where is that?
Sure. I mean, I can send. Do you want me to send it in Discord or the?
Yeah, Discord's good.
What, like, I don't know what you think you're going to be doing here, but like this is a study that I found through, I think, Noah Smith's blog post. It doesn't find that H-1B workers substitute native-born citizens. In fact, it finds when companies like hire more, or like when companies win more H-1B lotteries, they end up hiring more native-born citizens.
Okay, so this is from Harvard, which historically is pretty. It's good at like a lot of really smart people go there. They also brought us DEI, which is cancer and incoherent. And so when we're looking at this and they're saying we have these really ideologically driven policies that we want to call authoritatively valuable, okay, fine. So you're saying there's a Harvard study that concludes this. So, okay, so this is one set of evidence. Scale of 1 to 10. 10 is like, I don't know if you believe in God, but 10 is like God himself says, this is truth. And we're like, okay, this is truth. Whatever your highest. And then we have this study. It's north of 0. How authoritative do you find this study on the particular claim that H-1B visas holders, or the H-1B program displaces American talent? Like box check, 100%, no more need to think about it anymore.
No, okay. This one study, like I don't think is sufficient or anything. I don't know how to quantify like how much it like updates me. I mean, it probably makes me like. I mean, I would have to, like, this study alone probably, like, I think gives you decent reason to believe that H-1B workers increase overall employment of native-born workers as well. I don't know exactly how to quantify that percentage for you, how much it updates me.
Well, no, like for example, if I was looking at something and there was a source I found authoritative, so I'll tell you how I weigh this one. So it's not 10 out of 10. It's not 10 out of 10. It's not 1 out of 10. Maybe 2 or 3 out of 10. It's a data point. On its face, it seems to conflict with a lot of other data points I find authoritative. Find 3 or 4 studies like this that start to say a consensus. Guess what? It keeps going up, keeps going up.
Okay, well, I can send you more.
Well, here's the thing. This is a study from, so look, if you want to send me more information about that, find a look through it. Part of the problem that you and I are having right now is, for example, if you were to go to my LinkedIn, you'd see that probably 10 to 20% of my network is government and government contractors who live and breathe this H-1B visa shit quite a bit. And I've listened to them say the jokes about how they run these ads for a Python developer on exclusively places that technically check the box that say we're looking for an employer, or we're looking for an employee domestically and we just can't find one. But they're not posting it on Indeed. They're not posting it on anywhere anyone's actually looking. And so I can appreciate your skepticism and saying, well, just, StreamRift is saying this on the internet, so what the hell do I care? But in objective reality, this is a known business practice within government contracting, and it is demonstrably cancerous on developing local talent. So I don't know to what end we resolve this. So for example, let's say you and I.
Well, I prefer to use like data, stuff that like quantifies things, and then I prefer that data is like either calibrated to some model, or we just like use this data to do some type of like sort of actual like intense causal or like I say robust causal inference from it, rather than just making a bunch of assumptions based on our sort of anecdotal experience or sort of more anecdotal data.
No, this is, for example, when and I don't have it right in front of me here, but when we take a look at like the number of grads, so like I live in Vegas, there's computer grads here always looking for work, and they have to leave Vegas to go looking for opportunity. And so that's fine. We say Vegas is a casino town. It's entertainment. It's hospitality. It's not a tech hub yet. I think it's becoming one. Okay, fine. But like, again, fundamentally, like what I think the real issue is, where you and I aren't seeing eye to eye, is I don't think you give a shit about domestic engineering talent. I think to you, it's something that just doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't matter at all to you that by us diluting our domestic engineering talent, we're diluting our position as America, like as a world superpower. We're kneecapping our future, and we're kneecapping our potential, and we're doing it over an immigration program. Like I don't think you and I even have the same sort of value structure on that. Thoughts?
Yeah, of course I care about American talent and American innovation or whatever. I think H-1B visas like increase those things. I mean, we might like differ a little in that, like, I like am not going to care like if, for example, we get more innovation by having more H-1B visa workers, and like let's say that leads.
Slide a hand right there.
What?
You're moralizing something here. It seems like you're implying that I'm you're not being this harsh with it, but just to paint the picture, I'm some Luddite that doesn't, get off my lawn, don't let anyone come here, because
I'm not trying to paint that picture. What I think more specifically, like what we're going to disagree, is like I will sort of value the utility given to the visa holder themselves, and I don't think that you would as much. And I think I don't know even by moralizing. We're talking about, like, you asked like what I think our differences in values are going to be. I'm just pointing to you. I think these are the differences that we're going to have.
Yeah, well, like, so to clear this up a little bit, tighten this up a bit. You seem to accept as a foregone conclusion that having H-1B visa holders in the U.S. is good for the U.S. Agreed? That's what you think?
I don't know if I would say I accept it as a foregone conclusion. I would say the evidence that I've seen, mostly from economists that I've read who have written about it, suggests that H-1B visas, one, operate often as complements to domestic labor rather than substitutes, and two, contribute materially to U.S. innovation and U.S. productivity.
So I was discussing this on LinkedIn with some immigration attorneys who are very hostile to Trump. And they were complaining about this $100,000 H-1B fee when it came out. And I went on LinkedIn and I said, for all of you companies bitching about this, I can get you 10 engineers right now, domestic talent, save you $1 million in H-1B visas. Now, I have about 6,500 connections, insurance professionals, engineers, attorneys, law school professors, intelligence community. Do you know how many people reached out to me to take advantage of this domestic talent that I have available? Zero.
So if you restrict,
absolutely zero.
If you severely, oh, you're saying no one reached out for your domestic talent?
No one. So here's the thing. If we have complaints, it's an awful burden. What I think it is, if we're being really honest, is in the government contracting space, it's a great way for them to be able to get compliant worker drones that will take whatever terms they can get so they can live the American dream. And they're doing so at the expense of being able to allow American talent and American taxpayers to participate in doing engineering that keeps the country going.
So
that's one
problem
I have with
for one, I don't think based on that data point you gave me, we would be able to even determine whether one, if it could just be because companies overhired during COVID and are just more risk averse.
This is a bad practice that has existed for a very long time. Part of why I find it fatiguing to argue with folks like you, and this isn't meant as a swinging, and it's just a point. It seems like I could disprove it from any authority source imaginable, and it still doesn't land. And so that's
what I'm saying, you didn't like prove it. What you just told me is that you think H-1B visas are like there's so much abuse in them and they don't actually need the talent because of your anecdote that no one reached out to you over LinkedIn when you said you were going to get people the talent or whatever. So for what? That's not bad faith sleight of hand.
That is, you're changing the argument, the framing.
Is that not what you just told me?
So what I'm going to explicit, no, what I said was government contractors, in order to get H-1B contractors, what they will do is they will run job ads in publications they know do not get circulation, so they can check the box saying that they.
Yeah, you said that. You said that at the beginning. You were just telling me about LinkedIn, though. You were just telling me you don't think like H-1Bs are like actually needed or useful because no one reached out to you over LinkedIn when you offered to find native-born talent.
I think it's interesting if people are on LinkedIn bitching. These are immigration attorneys. These are immigration attorneys helping tech startups saying, my God, we need this. On my LinkedIn, like, I have a good network. I've got a portfolio. And it's not even about me looking for work to say, hey, let me pour out some of my guys. It's, look, there's guys that I know that are brilliant, absolutely brilliant, that do not have work to do at the level at which they can operate. And I would love to see
but like,
them
I have no clue
building things.
If that is just because they don't trust you, or they just didn't see the message, or just because companies are more risk adverse to, or maybe it's because wait, just real quick, or maybe it's because companies are just more risk adverse to hiring people more generally, as it appears not just tech companies are, but more generally we're in a very low hire economy right now, or like there's any number of these effects that could be affecting it, and then I don't even know what exact claim that you think that would necessarily prove, because
to ratchet everything down.
I don't think that. Wait, just to be clear, do you think that
one?
Hold on, do you think that should that is good evidence that either one, H-1B workers aren't a net benefit, or two, H-1B workers don't increase net jobs, or like what claim exactly do you think that evidence is supporting? Just that there are people who abuse the system?
If the H-1B program, well, okay, so there's two claims I've made. You want to spend time ignoring, it sounds like, the one where I'm literally telling you the rampant process for government contracting going back 10 years or more is run an ad on a paper that no one pays attention to. That whole routine. You don't want to talk about that.
We talked about at the beginning. I said, I guarantee you that there are like cases of that happening. I don't know how common it is, and my view,
they get away with it, so that's great. No, people like you keep systems like this operational. Excellent.
Well, I would prefer that we not impose a lot of the requirements on H-1B visa holders that we currently do, including
fucking point anyway, which makes it dishonest for you to say you give a shit about the H-1B program. Because again, the H-1B.
Wait, hold on. I'm just analyzing whether. Wait. Just to be clear, I'm analyzing whether it's a net benefit or not, right? So just the same way, like with is it gonna bring shit up, or hopefully we won't get sidetracked here. But like, if I'm analyzing whether a welfare program is a net benefit, and maybe the welfare program has like 5% of its money going to fraud, right? I can still think that welfare program is a net benefit despite the 5% going to fraud. And I can say, I would prefer that we have something to catch more fraud so that there wasn't any fraud. That is essentially the same thing I'm doing here. I recognize that there are companies that abuse the H-1B visa system or contractors that abuse the H-1B visa system, but I still think the program is a net benefit. And I think that there are solutions to that problem, like just not requiring companies to sort of look for a lot of native-born workers a lot of time to get an H-1B visa holder, and making H-1B visas more easily transferable between companies that I would prefer we do.
Yeah, you have an ideology that you like, so you're happy with any study, any report, anything that supports it. This doesn't have to do with what's good for the economy, and it sure as hell isn't an honest inspection about the H-1B. If this was an honest inspection about the H-1B, you'd go something more along the lines of, oh my goodness, Josh, if this is what's actually going on, this is terrible. And then we'd agree, and we okay, cool.
There would be a sufficient amount of like H-1B visa fraud that would make me think the program might not be a net benefit.
What level would that be? So like, for example, let's say
it'd have to be pretty high.
I mean, north of 10%? If 1 in 10 was a fraud, would that be concerning to you?
You would have to specify. I don't know where the exact line would be. It would depend on probably what kind of the fraud is, but I would say it would probably be under 50%, but I'm not sure.
Okay, so for example, if we just look at government contracting, meaning these are positions that American taxpayers pay into to write the funding on, and it benefits America. And so I think we think an American should be working. American would probably have the most allegiance to American outcomes.
Wait, are you just hold on?
Yep.
Okay, repeat. What exactly is the fraud there?
Well, so I'm getting to it. I'm laying the scene. We've talked about a bunch of things. I know it can be confusing. So if we've got government contracting positions, right? So it's either they're working for the federal government or they're a contractor.
Mm-hmm.
In theory, that'd be a job sector that'd be the most appropriate, right? This is defense, this is interior, this is all of these things that are super.
But now, if there is a national security concern, I think there's reasons to maybe prevent or screen immigrants harsher before they get those positions. But that was not seemingly the claim that you were making earlier.
Well, no. So I'm trying to give us a shared frame so I can make the claim. So the shared frame is these positions should be going to Americans, is my position anyway. Fact of the matter is, and I'm just narrowing it to that.
Wait, just to be clear, what is these positions where there's a national security concern?
No, so I'm exclusively looking at jobs where it's a government employee or it's a government contractor, and we're using an H-1B visa. What percentage of those is fraud are you okay with?
What is the fraud? What's the type of fraud?
Fraud where they're lying and claiming that they can't find domestic talent. So they run an ad on a paper no one looks at and say, oh, we looked. So I'm calling that fraud. And I'm saying, what percentage of fraud is Nonfon?
That wouldn't be a type of fraud that I would particularly care about. I don't even really consider that like
then you're
fraud.
Not a serious person.
Of the typical
lying on a federal form when you're trying to get taxpayer funds to fund something is not fraud.
I think usually
not a serious person. It's fine.
I think it would probably meet some legal standard of the word fraud. That is not sort of
fraud. Literally signing a statement on an application, like a government contract saying, hey, U.S. government, I hereby certify and attest I have diligently sought to find U.S. talent and can't find any here. That is definitionally making a false statement to the federal government. Now you can split.
Sure, I imagine that would meet some like I imagine it's like willfulness criteria to all of it as well. But like that is when you first said fraud, I assumed something much harsher, much worse than that. But
lying on an application for to get paid for having a contractor work for you.
I don't even know what do you mean by get paid for. I don't even know what you mean by that now. To be clear, when you
federal government pays government contractors to do labor, and if government contractors, Raytheon, Lockheed Martin.
Just to be clear, these are private companies, though, correct?
These are private companies,
and then they are paying employees. Correct. They have
how government contracting works. Since
I understand they get a contract from the government, but these are private companies paying for the workers themselves. It seems so weird to say like the government is.
It's only weird because you're being intentionally fucking retarded.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is the level of obstinate that you have to be to remain this stupid. The federal government says, "Hey, we're looking for these things done." Companies apply for it. They say, "We're going to do this. We're going to do that." And they'll bid out time and materials, fixed rate.
I'm aware.
And they'll say, we need to hire these roles. And the government pays them based off of that. So basically, government contractor submits a timesheet to the government. The government says, okay, for worker 1, we'll pay you this. For worker 2, we'll pay you that. For worker 3, we'll pay you this. So when the government contractors want to make more money, it's very easy for them to import talent that's waiting on a lottery for these jobs, but it's harder for them to negotiate fairly with domestic talent. So
if they're paid on I'm so confused. If they're paid on a cost plus basis or whatever, if they're paid per worker, what is the incentive to hire a foreign worker over a domestic worker?
Do you listen when I talk?
Maybe not, because I feel like I'm going insane. What you just told me is that they pay them like per worker, and it is my understanding that many of these like defense contracts are paid on a cost plus basis, so they pay for your cost plus whatever. In that case, I don't know what the incentive is for hiring a foreign-born worker over a domestic worker. If they like are bidding and like,
it's fine.
What is okay? Repeat it. What is the incentive for hiring?
So, congratulations, Nonfon. You're a government contractor, and we're going to pay you 20% of the wages for 100 employees. You can go get H-1B visa holders that are biting at the bit for the opportunity to come to this country, and they will sign on the dotted line, and they will show up.
If I'm getting a 20% margin anyway.
Let me finish.
Okay.
Let me answer your question. If you're not going to let me answer questions, then this isn't going to be that interesting. The alternative is negotiating against U.S. labor who can get a fair rate that can actually go through the process and engage with it. And so you're going to have to you're not going to get paid as much because you're going to have to go find them. You're going to have to pay them fairly, and you're not going to just have a giant list of them.
If you're paying 20% of the worker's wages or whatever, then to hire the worker's wage to hire that 20% would be right. You'd be getting more. No, that's one of the big issues. That's one of the big issues with the cost.
And then you start arguing, but the fact is not actually real.
Okay, just to be clear, what you told me, unless I misheard, what you told me was like the government was saying like for each worker, like we're gonna pay you like their cost plus 20% of their wage, right?
No, you're too stupid to even listen. So here's the thing: you start off and you say, "Hey, guess what? You said this thing," and it's like, "Well, there's a piece of this that you weren't paying attention to." And to be fair, I didn't mention this detail, but you inserted a fact that isn't a fact, and then ran off that instead of clarifying. When they're bidding this out, they get a contract. Usually it's, the government will say, we'll pay $95 an hour for this level. We'll pay $75 an hour for this level.
There we go. So that's different. That's different. That's not a cost plus basis then.
Right. So what level of detail do you think I should have provided you, particularly when you started?
I think when I asked like 2 times,
ran off of them. Is that considered good faith to you?
I don't think you've been clear. I'm just trying to. It's driving me insane because I don't think anything you said has been clear, and I think I asked relatively clear questions.
Why do you think we communicate so poorly?
I can see.
No, let's go hyper meta right now. So I don't know. 21 years old, and I communicate with a lot of people extremely well, even people I disagree with. So if you're saying you don't even understand what I'm saying and I'm not being clear, why do you think that is? How can we communicate better? And if not,
I think it's because we just have like entirely different frameworks for how we view the world and how we treat evidence and stuff of that nature. And on how we sort of view and treat claims, because I like going, I like trying to prove or disprove like very specific claims, and I think it feels like a lot of times you start appealing to sort of broader problems that with evidence that
do a good job of pointing to where you'd like the conversation to go.
Sometimes I feel like I let people get away with moving around too much.
Right. Well, so let me do this for you.
I mean, I did it, just to be clear, like I did it once when like you gave that anecdote about LinkedIn or whatever, and I was like, I don't really know like what that claim is or what that evidence is supposed to necessarily prove, because it doesn't seem to change. It shouldn't change your view much on any of the specific claims that I said about. It doesn't seem that H-1B visa holders sort of decrease native born employment. It doesn't seem H-1B visa holders, or it does seem that H-1B visa holders contribute a lot to startup companies, to U.S. innovation more generally. The evidence you gave does not really conflict with any of the more specific claims I made.
You keep making claims, right? So, for example, you make the claim H-1B visa holders innovate for startups. Okay, fine. You make the claim, but it doesn't seem, but you're not supporting it with anything. So we'll go back to the LinkedIn post. So I said, in government contracting, there's this rampant fraud, and you're like, eh. And I'm like, here's a secondary one that's doesn't carry very much weight. It's just one experience on one post in one network. I wouldn't, for national policy, I don't think it's dispositive. But if it was such a big issue, you'd think I'd get some messages. By contrast, I put up a post that said, hey, I'm looking for engineers. What is it? Mid performers need not apply. And I got like 30 people messaging me, a lot of them in the US. And so what I think that the axis of a part of where we're not seeing eye to eye, and we're not going to resolve this call for sure, is you seem to buy into some big narratives that I think are largely manufactured, and you're not, to my mind, willing to actually test and inspect them. You accept, for example...
Well, because you think all my evidence is just manufactured too, so it doesn't really matter if I cite my evidence.
What I'm saying is people are misleading you, most likely. That's the nature.
Okay, like do you think like Brookings is misleading me when like they write an article about how many like Fortune 500 companies were founded by immigrants or their kids?
Well, so I'm going to go back to the Harvard study that you sent me, because that's the only study that currently in this discussion you brought up. What I might do later is dig in on that one. I'm going to be looking at it for their methodology.
What is just real quick, what is a instrumental variable?
What do you mean?
What is an instrumental variable?
What does it have to do with looking at the study here?
Because that's part of their methodology.
That was allegedly trying to study something. They would come up with a methodology. They would come up with some data. They didn't come up with instrumental variables, to be clear. What is a I don't even know that much econometrics, man. Like what is do you know what a p-value is? So why are we doing pop quiz on economic terms here?
Because you said it's not even economics, it's like statistics. But because if you're saying you're gonna like do a deep dive here, deep dig into the study, if it's like any study if it's a study that has any worth a salt at all, it's going to say, here's how we tested these. Here's the theory we're testing. It's very scientific. Here's the theory we're testing. Here's how we went about looking for it. Here's the data. Here's what we found. And there's lots of different ways this falls off. Sometimes it's a small sample size. Sometimes it's a timeline that doesn't make sense. Sometimes it's niched down to something. So usually with a study, there is some meaningful insights on it, but it's rarely the headline that people are posting. So frequently individuals like you who like what the thing is saying or what the caption was, don't actually dive in to understand what it says. A good example of studies, I see the 420 there. I'm assuming that it's a reference to the degenerate cannabis. Well, there's a lot of studies about reefer madness. And the way that they'll make a study that says, oh my God, it makes people schizo, is they'll find a study that has 69 samples in it, some people predisposed to it, and then they'll do some p-hacking. And so that's how you... Wait, hold on. Just what is p-hacking?
It's when you run the study multiple times and you grab the results that you like the most.
What result? What's the result that you're aiming at?
Look, here's the thing.
Do you think the p-hacking could have anything to do with the p-value?
All right. So what are you doing right here in this moment? Like you're using a rhetorical approach that I think is indicative of low IQ, I guess. I don't know.
True.
It's a way of framing a rant, but it's not a way of actually getting into anything. So I'm saying, let's actually take a look at the study instead of saying, you know what, StreamRift, that's a great
I don't think,
idea.
and
Thank you
like,
so much. No, let me finish. Thank you for putting this out. You know what, StreamRift? You said I sent you a study and you care so much about it, you're actually going to look at it. And instead of being like, oh, that's great, he's going to look at it, you want to be condescending about technical terms on a certain type of paper, which are not going to be a gating item in understanding what they're saying, unless the report was written terribly.
Understanding what a p-value is probably a gating item on understanding some studies. And to be clear, like, I'm not the most educated on econometrics or statistics. Okay, I try my best and I talk to people who I think are smart, and I rely on people who I think know more than me, right? And I read what I can, and I'm slowly working my way through an econometrics textbook. But like, I think like when you tell me you're gonna like dive deep into this study or whatever, but you're not familiar with what a p-value is, that makes me skeptical that you're really like approaching it in good faith.
What is good faith to you? As you just
trying to achieve some like actual understanding, coming in open-minded and not with a conclusion, and not just like looking to debunk it.
So if I hand you a study and I say, hey, would you check this out? And you go, you know what, I'm going to look at that. Do you think that's an indication that you're going to waste your time looking at something in bad faith? Or do you think it's an indication?
No, I don't think that alone. No, I don't think that alone is indication. Right.
So I mean, look, I got another 5 minutes. I'll even look at it here. Right. So I'm saying so what exactly do you think I should take from the study? Do you have something you'd like to add?
Yeah, that H-1B visas like don't decrease net employment. They don't find evidence for that. In fact, it seems like they find the opposite.
Well, that could be true, and it could also be hell for domestic talent. Let's play this one out. Let's say there's 50,000 software engineering jobs, and they do H-1B visas for all of them. Do you think those other workers are going to go looking for other jobs? Or do you
this is looking at employment in the tech sector, I believe.
So you're saying, so what is these? You just said you like to make a specific claim. What is the specific claim that I'm looking at this through the lens of? This would be a good ending note here. So I'm going to go through this.
Looking at through the lens of?
Stupid engineering mind, my uneducated college dropout mind. Marvel if I could even understand the words on the page. What is, so the claim that,
so this looking at this is a firm level study. This is for firms that hire more H-1B workers, employ more native-born skilled workers than what they estimate the like counterfactual to be.
So, okay, firms hire more H-1B visa workers. Okay, firms that hire more H-1B visa workers employ more domestic talent. What was the rest of it?
Than what they estimate.
Words verbatim.
Than what they estimate the counterfactual to be.
And what is the counterfactual? Give me
as if they didn't hire H-1B workers, or like compared to similar firms.
What is the methodology that how would we conclude this? So we've got a firm that hires 10 H-1B visas, and the firm that hires 10 H-1B visas now hires 10 more domestic. How would we prove positive and establish that was because they hired the H-1B?
So the H-1B is on a lottery system. So generally you would try to do some type of like matching between comparable firms that won an H-1B visa versus didn't win an H-1B visa lottery. And you would collect data on them, or use the data that you have from them. And you would apply, various controls, and you would, I think they do. Yeah, it says they have a OLS and IV specification. So that's I forget what the O stands for. But like OLS, that's just like a basic like regression that they're doing. And IV specifications is a little more nuanced than that. They're using a instrumental variable in between. They're not just looking at the dependent and independent variables like they do with their regression. and they try to estimate how big the effects of winning H-1B lottery systems are.
Does this seem like a lot of ifs, maybes, and speculations, or does it seem like a provable hard science to you, a fact like gravity or math?
Well, it's a social science, so I recognize its laws and natural experiments are going to be more limited than hard sciences, but it does seem relatively rigorous to me.
I mean, it seems like an awful lot of mental masturbation to me. It's fine. I'll go through it. I appreciate you explaining more your thought process on it so I can understand. It sounds like you're very comfortable with taking a look at a large data set, running algorithms against it, looking for patterns and saying, this is reality. For me, algorithms are frequently a good way of trying to categorize things, but frequently reality is messier than that. And there's a lot that gets lost when you start doing abstractions of things, such as taking a look at, well, of the companies that won the H-1B lottery, here's this and here's this, because there are too many confounding variables. There's just so many other
that's
things
why
in the market where this is, it's yeah, go ahead.
So I would imagine that one, they would have controls that they would try to account for in the OLS regression. And then for the instrumental variable, they probably technically have controls for that as well. But the point of the instrumental variable is supposed to get around some of those confounding factors or whatever.
Still an abstraction. You're taking.
It's not. I don't mean by abstraction. Data. It's an estimate.
Oh, an estimate is an abstraction.
Okay. But like, okay, like I think part of what's nice about studies is they, I think, try to isolate stuff as much as they can, and they studies don't always do this, but many of them try to make relatively narrow claims. So it's not like we are studying whether or not the H-1B system as a whole is a net benefit. It's more, we are studying, do firms which successfully hire more H-1B workers employ more or less native-born workers as compared to comparable firms that didn't win, like H-1B visas? Like, that's a relatively narrow claim, and I think it can be used and as evidence for the system being beneficial, well, depending on what the results are. But I think when you try to do as rigorous analysis as possible to make narrow claims, that is a lot better than sort of using anecdotal or like first-hand experience to make much broader claims.
Yeah, so here's where this, so I will say this. I think we have had some genuine progress here, in the sense that I do think I better understand the way that you arrive at the conclusions you do. So I do appreciate you engaging that way. So if I'm to apply to sort of wrap the H-1B discussion here and wrap up, if let's say there's 50,000 CS grads that are looking for work and there's 50,000 H-1B visa holders, it sounds like your conclusion would be, if we didn't hire the 50,000 H-1B workers, then we would have more than 50,000 domestic workers looking for jobs. That's your understanding of how this program impacts the domestic labor pool.
I mean, at least in some cases, yeah.
What do you mean in some cases? I'm looking at this in aggregate as a whole. So
I mean, I could imagine like cases where it's not going to be the case, that H-1B workers are necessarily complements rather than substitutes.
So here's my position. My position is the H-1B program has been cancer for both domestic engineering opportunity and being able to develop our own domestic engineering talent. So it's my position that if there's 50,000 H-1B visa holders doing work that domestic talent can, that means we would have less than 50,000 people looking for work in that example, because they would have the jobs the H-1B visa holders have. And it's insane to me that seems like it's a controversial subject, but I do believe that's the argument you presented. So thank you for, if that's not it, go for it. That is my best.
No, that it's just weird to think that's like, it's insane to think that like native-born workers are necessarily displaced by immigrants, especially high-skilled immigrants, like high-skilled immigrants. Like that is
A lot of the H-1B visa holders are not high skill. It's just they're in tech. These are some of them. I think
high skill. When normal people use the term high skill, they are referring to the type of immigrants that H-1B workers often are.
But there's
college educated, typically working in tech.
There's entry-level tech jobs that these H-1B visa holders get. When they get their entry-level job, then they have experience and they go up the
like the minimum, what's the minimum salary for H-1B visa workers? Like 60,000 or 80,000 or
distraction from the point.
I think when most people use the word skilled immigrant, that would encompass almost every H-1B visa immigrant who is earning like at least $60,000. I think it's the minimum.
Well, I mean, look, here's the thing. I'm saying there's entry-level tech jobs going to H-1B visa holders, and we have entry-level.
When you say entry-level,
get those jobs.
Tech job. Tech is a skilled industry.
So
you can have an entry-level position
for it
in a skilled position.
I'm confused. Do you think those are mutually exclusive?
What is mutually exclusive?
Do you think an entry-level attorney, for example, is an unskilled job?
No, that's exactly my point. Is that just because you have an entry-level tech job doesn't mean that you are unskilled. You keep saying entry-level, but it's entry-level into an industry that requires a lot of skill.
Right, and so if you're giving entry-level positions, which also come with more opportunity to improve your skills, you're feeding the immigrant tech pool, not the domestic pool. Like for example, what's so crazy to me is, again, we have CS grads looking for jobs and they're going to H-1B holders, and you're saying there's no way those two are impacting each other. It's like
I want to say that
gravity exists.
True.
That level of cognitive dissonance that it looks like you're engaging with here.
True. That's me.
CS grads. We've got H-1B holders having entry-level jobs. There's no way that those are competing with each other.
I just want...
Okay.
Well, first of all, what do you mean by competing with it? But okay, regardless. I just want you recognize that when you said, I said these are mostly skilled immigrants, and you said, no, they have entry-level tech jobs. You understand...
There was a misunderstanding there. No.
Okay.
Whether it's a distinction that doesn't make any difference to me. So we can say it's a skilled or an unskilled job. It's irrelevant to me. If we have domestic talent that's capable of doing a job, the H-1B program should never get in the way of them being able to have that job. And that's exactly what's going on right now. But apparently, because of this Harvard study, just to wrap it, this Harvard study says the more H-1B we bring in, the more talent for everybody. So, okay.
Sure. So I disagree that they are necessarily substitutes. That's true. But I also want to talk about, right. Do you think that like, do you think there are like any potential spillover benefits, or benefits to other people outside of the tech industry from tech companies being able to hire labor, like more labor, even if it does hurt tech workers, which again, I don't really think it does.
No, I think it fundamentally undermines the U.S. economy.
Okay. Why don't you think that, do you think tech companies generally do work that like benefits large numbers of people?
Sure.
So do you think that if they were able to hire more labor,
okay, go ahead with your thing. Go ahead.
If they were able to hire more labor, and you should also think that if they did hurt tech workers, probably the wages for tech workers would go down, which would also probably that would increase the quantity supplied or the quantity demanded of like tech workers as well. I would imagine in that case you would have to kind of grant that they were increasing employment, that companies were hiring more people. I think plausibly that would have spillover benefits on many other people who would now use the new products, and many other workers who would now be more productive from the new products for businesses that these tech companies make and develop. And yeah.
Counterpoint. A lot of times the types of engineers that go into these roles are going into roles that are not particularly innovative. It's just basic maintenance on old systems. So
but even in that case, that would free up
instead of actually working on innovating new systems that bring society forward, we get stuck in a lull, and there's an incentive to have a drag. Beyond that, there are a lot of reasons, perhaps, why we may want to have immigrant tech workers, but we can't even have that discussion if we're hung up on the H-1B discussion. Let me ask you this.
Wait, hold on.
What do you think I misunderstand? What do you think I misunderstand? We've had a discussion here. I do think I better understand your perspective, and I appreciate you showing your work. I don't believe I'm mischaracterizing to say you looked at a study that said more H-1B visa holders. According to that study, more H-1B visa holders means more jobs for everyone. Like I can see how that would be internally consistent. Like you'd be like, okay, well, and that's just looking at the top of it, Wellesley, Harvard, and Johns Hopkins. Those are good names. This isn't, Podunk Community College or whatever. Like, fine, but because of that, you seem to hang your hat on that one. Go ahead.
Sure. Well, I mean, it's not just that. I have a number of other studies, but
on top of everything you have, up to 10 sources. I will look through up to 10 sources.
I'm pretty sure I have more than 10.
Send as many as you'd like. I will commit to investigating at least 10 of them. And I'm gonna.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be very
results.
Very rigorous.
But we just know. Look, this is the second time we've interacted. I didn't have to do this. You messaged me. I said, okay, we'll talk. Why would I? What setup would I possibly have?
I don't necessarily think you have. Wait, what do you mean incentive? Actually, I think you probably do have some incentive to.
Why would I have an incentive
to be bad faith? Because presumably
to be bad faith.
Because presumably it'd be more embarrassing for you to publicly post online that you got epically owned by a liberal than that you got debunked by a liberal by looking at his sources.
It would not impact my social standing one way or the other.
I'm sure.
This is internet drivel. This is something that just contextually, I have a professional network. I have a small business I've built. I live in part of the American dream for me is I get to go online and talk to folks like you and have discussions and explore the world around me. I love it. I think it's great. So but just that all said, I don't have what I'm getting out of this, right? Currently on the stream, I have 0 viewers. I'm not monetized. I don't get donations. What do I get out of this? I talk to you. I understand the way you're coming from things. If you understand, I mean, I've been asking you how you arrive at your conclusions. Yes, I disagree with them, but I'm less interested in trying to win you over, and I'm far more interested in understanding how you write your conclusions. If you say, these are the studies I look at, and beyond that, I actually think you genuinely are looking through them. You say you're reading an economics book and you're trying to study and learning all these technical terms. So I believe you internally, you care about the stuff, you're engaged. I'd rather talk to people that care about these things and engage with it than just sit here and scream at each other.
I agree. I also think the fact that it seems like you don't necessarily have the tools to understand some of the stuff in the study, which suggests that you could potentially come away with a not full understanding of stuff. And there are studies I read that I can't comprehend everything in because I don't know everything about econometrics or anything.
So, do you think that there's some sacred knowledge, priesthood, of people who can understand things? Do you think us mere mortals can't understand the mysteries of published studies?
No, I think people can, and it's not super hard or anything. I think people just have to.
Or at a minimum,
as of now, I think you could. I think I have some faith that you could learn how to do it, and obviously, you could spend a lifetime just learning all the ins and outs of different types of causal designs and all their potential drawbacks, and every potential problem with synthetic controls and whether or not synthetic control studies are good or bad. But I think you can learn general principles and general information that'll be enough to get you to understand much of the stuff in the studies.
Yeah. So let me ask you this sort of closing thought here. If you looked on your phone and it said it was 10 degrees outside, 10 degrees Fahrenheit, so below freezing, and then you went outside and it felt like it was 70 degrees, you had a t-shirt on, didn't feel like 10 degrees, would you be more inclined to believe it was closer to 70 degrees or 10 degrees?
Closer to 70.
Even though it's anecdotal?
I think
experience.
I think there that like I am pretty well equipped to understand what temperature it is. That is a thing people have a very intuitive understanding of. That is something our bodies are meant to directly measure. That directly conflicts with my sense data. I think when it comes to more complex things, I don't have the same type of sense data that can measure it. And to the extent that I can observe things on my own, with regards to stuff that affects the national economy and where it's hard to see the counterfactual, importantly, I would rely more on published research or stuff, other sources that I trust that I think are more rigorous and encompass more things.
So do you think if, for example, a mere college dropout plebe, were to do a study and actually grab source data, real data about what's actually going on, and publish a study about that, do you think that would have any credibility under your world, under the way you evaluate?
Would you say credibility? I think I would have a presumption that studies that are published by high quality journals tend to be high quality in the nature of their evidence. But so if it got published by a high quality journal, I would think it would be. If it was not published by a high quality journal, then I wouldn't have as strong of a presumption that the evidence within it is high quality. But if someone takes the time to look at real data and like actually write something up, I would apply stronger weight to that than I do a lot of other stuff.
You would at least be willing to evaluate it on its own merits.
Sure.
You wouldn't start off trusting it, but you'd say, okay, that's fair. All right.
I wouldn't necessarily have like a big presumption against it, but I wouldn't immediately trust it. Probably.
That's not the same. I mean, if Johns Hopkins, for example, like Johns Hopkins, they did a study about the impact of the COVID lockdowns. And lo and behold, they said it didn't really do shit. Guess what? Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, I'm on Team Johns Hopkins, and a bunch of people are screaming on the side that normally like the studies. This is a part of the problem with institutions, but, story for another day. All right. My friend, let me ask you this. 2 questions, 3 questions maybe. Question 1, scale of 1 to 10. How was this chat for you? Enjoy it? Didn't enjoy it?
I had fun. I'll give it a 6. It was okay.
Okay. What would have made it a 10?
If we talked more about other
donations?
stuff.
I don't know if you can for just going.
True. More donation, expensive, more TTS in a chat. I need to buy a cell phone plan for tomorrow. If we talked more about housing or trade as well. If you knew what a p-value was. Actually, that was kind of funny. I think you not knowing that made the conversation better.
Why do you find that? Well, yeah. I don't know why you would even find that interesting, if I'm honest.
That you don't know what a p-value is?
A lot of people aren't familiar with specific technical terms, and so if you rely on trying to find cohesion under everyone starting off with the same framework of looking at things and the same technical like library, it's just not going to work. So I do a lot of like plugging things in together that didn't naturally plug it together. For example, on one of the products we worked on, there's an e-commerce, there's a system that had all the customer data, and then they wanted to be able to send marketing messages. So we work on that. A lot of times I'm dealing with stuff where there is no handbook, there is no guide, there is nothing. There's just a blind spec of let's go forth and do that. So I typically start off in a world of abstraction and bring it into reality. So a lot of times there aren't necessarily terms for every inch of that when it hasn't happened. So I will say, I think if you're going to say, what's a p-value, tee-hee-hee, that reeks of bad faith to me. If you actually cared about that and want to have the discussion.
No, I think it reeks of bad faith when you assert things confidently about studies or about p-hacking and stuff and you don't know what a p-value is.
So there's a company called Data Colada. They're far more familiar with data science than I am. And in fact, they're so good at it that they've gone through and tried to repeat studies. And when they find that they can't get the answers to repeat, they reach out. They've gotten a ton of these reports that you've been excited about. A ton of these reports have been published by institutions, pulled because they were bunk. And so this entire data company that goes through, and they're far more capable than I am of all of this, go through and they tear them a new asshole. I say, well, guess what? If the experts in that industry that understand all of these technical terms go through to try to reproduce these studies and they can't, and they're getting folks to unpublish their studies because they're bunk and getting them to retract them, there's an indication that published studies might not all be 100% accurate or might not even be best information known at the time. So it seems like a shaky foundation to build on, which is why I can appreciate your skepticism, but that's why I like to go to first principles. If there's a study, I'd like to.
Well, what even is
study,
the first principles here?
And try to understand what the studies actually found. Go ahead.
Well, I do try to understand what studies are doing and what they actually find. But what are the first principles you're appealing to? Because I don't have a problem reasoning from, at least in some cases, applying some reasoning from like economic theory. And
no,
I think you can.
You ask a question about the first principles. I start at basically water is wet, right? Like no serious person would argue that water isn't wet. And you just try to start from scratch and get to wherever it is you're getting. So for example, if the earth is flat, this is an argument people have sometimes. I think it's a stupid argument, but let's attack it first principles. If the earth is flat or if it's sphere. Okay, well, let's start. Say, well, we've got all these different people in what we think are different parts of the world. And if they look up, they see stars in different constellations. And very consistently, all of these experiences people are having, if they look up at the sky, paints a picture that we're on something more like a sphere than like a plane. And so just first principles, just starting at water is wet, the most basic concept, can we get there? So this is the most, to me, it's the only way to actually test a test, to interrogate a study, is to say, okay, the claim is here, for example, H-1B visas create more jobs. Great, then that should mean if we could test that theory. If we opened up an additional 100,000 H-1B visa holder positions, then we would think we'd fill the 50,000 and then some, would have even more. So we can test this theory. On its face, this is a part of where a lot of these abstractions fall over. So you go through, you read the study, follow it to.
How would you know, first of all, that is not, we made a big jump from like water is wet to relying on data sources for the number of jobs and making inferences from the data source. Okay, but like, but just, I don't know how you would, in that case, you'd have to employ some design. What you're doing is not that different from what these studies are doing. It's just that these studies are not just looking at the number of jobs with regards to like H-1B visa, like shocks or whatever. They're looking at, they're employing more robust causal methods. They're doing controls for things. They're looking at very identifiable shocks or very identifiable firm versus firm comparisons. Like what you're doing is not that different from them. They just kind of do it better.
Well, better in what way? Because they haven't. So for example, if I'm looking at this and we're having this discussion, I only really care about the truth, right? So in this conversation, I care about two things. One, the truth, that'd be interesting. The other is I'm talking to another human on this planet, one of the other 8 billion people on this planet that likes having adversarial discourse, and I'd like to understand them. That's roughly where it sits. So those are the two things I'm going to get. So my understanding walking away from this is you think, according to the study, more H-1B visa holders means more jobs for domestic talent. I don't agree with the claim, but it's a specific claim. It's a testable claim. It's an interesting claim. The problem that I have that I think maybe you're a little less skeptical on, or actually I think you're a lot less skeptical on, is there are significant incentives to publish studies from an academic perspective. There's not a huge incentive to publish a study that proves, once again, water is wet. It's more sensational. The more sensational it is, the more likely you get more funding, all of these other things. This is a known problem with academia, and it's structural to academia, especially in soft sciences where you can mess with it, fudge it a little bit, no one's really checking anything. So in the hard sciences, like for example, in engineering and in math, things like this, like you can really tell if it's working or not, right? If I make a car and it doesn't drive, we know it isn't working. So when we have these, for example, the study here on the H-1B visas, I don't like, where would we, it seems to me like at least your claim is this. So let me back up. I'll end on this. Based off your position, do you think the study means if we hired, for example, if we just opened the door for 200,000 H-1B visas, then we'd have 200,000 or we'd have more domestic talent? Is that your current personal?
200,000 over what time span? I think there would be a margin at which it would hurt tech workers.
Okay. So my understanding is there's around 750,000 H-1B visa holders. I could be wrong. It's a fact. Whatever the fact is, it's like.
But I think, but that's like, that's the ones that exist currently, right? Like, I think if you had 200,000 H-1B workers come over in 1 month, that probably would decrease tech worker wages and stuff. It might normalize eventually. I bet it would normalize eventually. But if you had 200,000 over the course of 10 years, I think that'd be net positive. In fact, I think, having even more than that would be net positive, right?
How many a year do you think would be net positive? And
H-1B, specifically H-1B visas?
Yes.
I don't know exactly. I'd have to look at some estimates. I mean, I'm fairly comfortable with like probably over 500,000 coming a year. I think that's probably.
That's insane.
I don't even know if that many people. I don't know how many people apply to H-1Bs every year.
That would absolutely crater the domestic talent pool.
I'm not certain that's the case. I don't think. I don't think that many. Even how many people apply for H-1B every year?
This is the level to me at which you're saying I don't know if I lit a match in a haystack if it would catch on fire. Or even more egregious than that. Like, this is like you saying, I don't know if I throw a basketball.
No, we approved like 400,000 in 2024. So me saying 500,000, that's 100,000 increase. That's not like, that's not that crazy.
Okay, so you're saying 20% more than current.
Yeah, it might be even higher than that. I thought my number would be more than 20% more than a current, but.
Well, okay, if current's 400,000, how many do you think would be the upper limit of useful?
So are we only talking about tech workers, or are we talking about everyone?
Let's just say everyone in the H-1B space.
Everyone in the H-1B space.
So there's a 400,000 number you used, whatever the fuck that was.
Well, that's the number of approved H-1B visas.
Okay, so using that one, what do you think? So if we go to 400,000, 500,000, you're saying it's fine. 600,000, 700,000.
I'm saying where's. Fine for who? Are we saying fine for, like, what do I think would have a negative impact on tech workers and similar workers to H-1Bs, or what do I think would be positive for everyone?
What I'm saying is if Nonfon was the czar of immigration policy and he was going to make the decision that he believed was the best for the country, what is
the country as a whole?
Would do? Yeah,
the country as a whole, I would uncap the H-1B system.
Why do you hate America so much? A conversation.
I think if you totally uncap the H-1B visa system, it might have some. I don't know how many people would come, but it might have a negative impact on U.S. tech workers' wages. I don't think the effect would be that big. I'm not certain it would even decrease total employment. It would probably just decrease like average hourly wage. But I think the spillover benefits, the added innovation for them, would far outweigh the cost to the subset of workers that would be harmed by it, and the benefits to the immigrants themselves I would care about as well. But
yeah, so I'm going to end this with a compliment. Are you ready, Nonfon?
Yeah.
All right. I believe generally, folks like you argue from a place of caring about people, and I think that's wonderful. We need more people that care about people. All right, my friend. Well, is any closing thoughts before I get on with the rest of my evening here?
Nope. Fun talking to you. I'm sure we'll run into each other again. And
you're going to send me those sources, and I'm going to look at them, and I'm going to do research. You said
I'm sure
more than 10. More than 10 I'm waiting for. We'll catch you later,
I've sent them in the DMs already.
Oh, well, then that's a done deal. All right. We'll catch you later.
All right. See ya. Appreciate it. Wow. Man, I guess I should prepare more for just defending social science in general. Big wow, yeah. That's not something I've prepared to debate that much. I'm prepared for like some of the biggest memes in econometrics era. I'm somewhat in the econometrics era, but yeah, but I mean it's not even just like I know there's, I know like the replication crisis or whatever is somewhat of a real thing, but I'm pretty sure that it's just quite a few like kind of slop memes about that as well. So what did we learn today, chat? Dude, I don't know. Did we learn anything? Did we learn anything? Thank you for watching, and if you want to help me continue to make content, liking, subscribing, and commenting are all greatly appreciated. You can also make sure to check out my Twitch, my Kick, and my Twitter down below, or consider becoming a member to my YouTube channel, which really helps support me as well.